At my son's school talent show, my wife volunteered to help host. She made the crowd laugh, saying, "Some kids come from heroes, mine come from him." My son joined in. "Dad, don't embarrass me again." Everyone clapped. I just smiled. 3 days later, the school's major sponsor, my firm, pulled out. The principal called her in tears. My name's Marcus Hale, and if you're looking for some sob story about a middle-aged guy going through a midlife crisis, you're in the wrong place. I'm 39 years old, licensed architect, husband to Laura for 15 years, father to Eli who just turned 12, and apparently, according to my loving family, the human equivalent of watching paint dry. You know, the boring kind of paint. Beige, maybe eggshell white if we're feeling adventurous. Let me set the scene for you. Northfield Middle School's annual spring talent show. A Thursday evening in April that should have been as simple as showing up, clapping politely for kids butchering Let It Go for the 800th time, and pretending that Tommy Henderson's card tricks weren't just him dropping half the deck on stage. Standard parental duty stuff. Smile, nod, take a blurry photo for the Instagram story that gets 12 likes, 9 of which are from your mom, and call it a night. Easy money, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because my wife, Laura, bless her heart and her apparently hidden aspirations of becoming the next Amy Schumer, decided to volunteer as the event's MC. That was bad idea number one, folks. And trust me, we're going to rack up quite a few more before this story's over. Now, I should have known something was off when she spent 3 hours getting ready for a middle school talent show. 3 hours. For an event where the dress code is business casual, if you remember, but honestly, nobody cares if you show up in yoga pants. She was curling her hair, doing that contouring thing with makeup that I still don't understand, and practicing her stage voice in the bathroom mirror. I thought maybe she was just excited. Supportive mom energy and all that. How delightfully naive I was, sitting there in my khakis and navy blazer, thinking we were about to have a normal Thursday evening. The auditorium was packed. Standing room only in the back, which is exactly where I planted myself, because I'm 6'2" and I'm not about to be that guy blocking everyone's view. The air smelled like that specific combination of industrial floor cleaner, adolescent body spray, and the weird anxiety that only exists in school gymnasiums and DMV waiting rooms. Parents were chatting, kids were bouncing around backstage, and the drama teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, was having what appeared to be a minor breakdown over a missing spotlight filter. Then Laura took the stage, and I swear to God, it was like watching a switch flip. The woman I'd eaten breakfast with that morning, the one who complained about her plantar fasciitis and asked me if we needed more Costco toilet paper, suddenly transformed into some kind of comedy club headliner. She grabbed that microphone like it owed her money, flashed this megawatt smile at the crowd, and I knew. I just knew I was screwed. "Good evening, everyone," she chirped, her voice booming through the speakers with way too much enthusiasm. "Welcome to Northfield Middle School's Spring Talent Show, where we celebrate the amazing talents of our incredible students." Standard stuff so far. I relaxed a little. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe this would be fine. It was not fine. "You know," Laura continued, pacing the stage like she'd been doing this her whole life, "they say our children are a reflection of their parents, that their talents, their dreams, their potential, all of that comes from the examples we set at home." She paused for dramatic effect, and I felt my stomach drop. "Some kids here tonight come from doctors, lawyers, artists, athletes, real heroes, you know?" "Oh no, oh no, no, no." "Mine?" She pointed directly at me in the back, and I swear every single head in that auditorium turned to look. 200 pairs of eyes, all landing on the boring guy in khakis. "Mine come from him." The crowd absolutely lost it. Laughter erupted like I'd just slipped on a banana peel while juggling chainsaws. Parents were clutching their stomachs, kids were pointing, and somewhere in the back, someone actually said, "Oof, that's rough, buddy," loud enough for me to hear. I did what any self-respecting husband would do in that moment. I smiled, nodded, even threw in a little self-deprecating wave, because what else are you supposed to do when your wife just roasted you in front of the entire school community? But Laura wasn't done. Oh no, she was just warming up, like a boxer who'd landed the first punch and realized her opponent wasn't even trying to block. My son Eli, my own flesh and blood, the kid I taught to ride a bike, The kid whose college fund I've been contributing to since he was born came bouncing onto the stage during a transition between acts. He was supposed to help move a prop or something, but Laura saw an opportunity and handed him the microphone. "Eli," she said, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "Tell everyone, what's the one thing you want your dad to know tonight?" I watched my son's face light up. He looked right at me, and with all the confidence of a kid who doesn't yet understand consequences, he said into that microphone, "Dad, please don't embarrass me again." More laughter, even louder this time. Mrs. Chen from 2 streets over was literally wiping tears from her eyes. Mr. Patterson, who I play golf with sometimes, gave me this pitying look, like I was a wounded animal on the side of the road. The drama teacher stopped having her breakdown long enough to chuckle. Even Murphy, our golden retriever who was waiting in the car, probably would have laughed if dogs could laugh. I kept smiling, kept nodding, kept clapping when appropriate because that's what you do. You take it on the chin, you laugh it off. You definitely don't stand up in the middle of your son's talent show and announce that actually the boring dad they're all mocking is Marcus Hale, co-founder and CEO of Hale and Stanton Group, one of the largest architectural and engineering firms in the tri-state area. You don't mention that the very auditorium they're sitting in, with its renovated stage, new lighting system, upgraded sound equipment, and structurally sound ceiling that won't collapse on their judgmental heads, exists because you personally wrote a check with more zeros than most of them see in their annual salary. No, you definitely don't say any of that. Not yet, anyway. You wait. You watch. You remember every single face that laughed just a little too hard, every parent who whispered to their neighbor, every smirk and snicker and shake of the head. You catalog it all with the meticulous attention to detail that made you successful in the first place. The same skills that built a company from nothing. The same patience that turns blueprints into buildings. Because here's what Laura and Eli and everyone in that auditorium didn't realize, couldn't have known as they yucked it up at my expense. That smile I was wearing, the good-natured dad routine, that was about to become their worst memory. That Thursday night under those fluorescent lights they mocked me beneath, sitting in those comfortable seats my money paid for, laughing at jokes about my supposedly boring existence, that was the last time things would be simple. 3 days. That's all it took. 72 hours for the cosmic joke to flip, for the punchline to change, for everyone to realize that sometimes the quiet guy in the back row isn't the comic relief. Sometimes he's the guy holding all the cards. And sometimes, just sometimes, he decides to reshuffle the deck. If you thought the talent show was a one-time thing, some momentary lapse in judgment fueled by stage lights and an audience's infectious laughter, let me disabuse you of that notion right now. Laura didn't just dip her toe into the comedy pool that Thursday night. She did a full cannonball and decided to set up permanent residence there. My humiliation, apparently, was the gift that kept on giving, and she was determined to milk it for every last drop. At home, every single dinner became a roast session. And I'm not talking about the pot roast kind, though God knows Laura couldn't cook one of those to save her life. No, I'm talking about the Comedy Central kind, except the target was always the same. Yours truly, the guy paying for the groceries we were eating while she cracked wise about my existence. Monday night, I burned the toast. Simple mistake, right? I was checking my email on my phone. The toaster did its thing a little too enthusiastically, and boom, carbon instead of carbs. Happens to everyone. But Laura, she seized that moment like a stand-up comedian spotting a heckler. "Well," she announced to Eli, who was doing homework at the kitchen table, "at least he didn't burn another career opportunity." Eli actually put down his pencil to applaud. My 12-year-old son gave her a standing ovation for mocking his father's toast-making abilities. I stood there with my burnt bread butter knife in hand, wondering at what point parenting books started recommending public humiliation as a bonding technique. Even Murphy, our golden retriever who literally eats his own vomit sometimes, looked at me with what I swear was pity. Or maybe judgment. With dogs, it's hard to tell, but either way, it felt like a betrayal. Tuesday brought us lasagna night, which sounds pleasant until you factor in Laura's newfound career as a household comedian. And I mentioned that the quarterly reports were looking strong, that we just landed a contract to design a new medical complex downtown. You know, boring work stuff that pays for Eli's private school tuition and Laura's Pilates membership. Her response? "Wow, Marcus, nothing says living on the edge like quarterly reports." Do you also get excited about spreadsheets? Don't answer that, I know you do. Eli snorted milk through his nose. Actual milk. He had to leave the table to clean up, and I could hear him laughing in the bathroom. My wife had turned our son into her personal hype man, and I was apparently the opening act nobody asked for. Wednesday was when things really started to grate on me. See, my crime, my apparently unforgivable sin, wasn't that I was cruel or neglectful or absent. It wasn't that I forgot anniversaries or missed Eli's baseball games or gambled away our savings. No, my crime was far worse in Laura's eyes. I wasn't flashy enough. I didn't post vacation reels on Instagram with trending audio and inspirational captions. I didn't quote Gary Vee or Tony Robbins or whatever motivational guru was currently telling people to crush it and disrupt the paradigm. I didn't film myself waking up at 4 a.m. to talk about my morning routine, didn't share my journey, didn't perform my life for an audience of strangers who probably wouldn't piss on me if I was on fire. I worked quietly. Boring spreadsheets, sure. Big contracts, absolutely. Steady income that kept us in a 4-bedroom house in a good school district with 2 cars in the garage and a vacation fund that actually had money in it. The kind of boring that built schools, hospitals, office complexes, and residential towers. The kind of boring that employed 200 people and had my name on buildings across 3 states. But none of that mattered because I wasn't making TikToks about my morning coffee routine or posting LinkedIn motivational speeches about how I failed forward or whatever corporate nonsense was currently trending. I was just working, building things, making money, being responsible. How utterly laughable, right? By Thursday, the joke had escaped containment. I walked into the office that morning. Hale and Stanton occupies the top 3 floors of a building I designed, by the way. And my assistant Jenny was trying not to smile, trying and failing spectacularly. "Morning, Marcus," she said, her voice doing that thing where you can tell someone's about to laugh, but they're desperately holding it in. "Coffee's ready. Also, have you seen your wife's Instagram?" I hadn't. Mistake number 2 in this increasingly long list. Laura had posted a video from the talent show. Not just any video, the video. The moment she pointed at me and delivered her zinger about heroes versus whatever category I fell into. The comments section was exactly what you'd expect from the internet. A dumpster fire of schadenfreude and strangers feeling qualified to comment on my entire existence based on a 15-second clip. "Your wife is hilarious," my colleague Brad said when I walked past the break room. Brad works in civil engineering, makes 6 figures, and apparently has nothing better to do than watch videos of his boss getting roasted by his own family. "Yeah," I muttered, not breaking stride. "She's a real treasure." By lunch, at least 5 different people had mentioned it. My phone was buzzing with texts from friends, or people I'd apparently mistaken for friends, sending me screenshots with crying laughing emojis. One guy from my college fraternity, who I hadn't talked to in 15 years, suddenly felt compelled to reach out and tell me that my wife was keeping it real and that I should learn to take a joke. Learn to take a joke. As if I hadn't been taking jokes for days now, as if I hadn't smiled through the talent show, laughed along at dinner, and played the good sport while my family treated me like their personal punching bag. But sure, I'm the one who needs to learn how to take a joke. My business partner, Rick Stanton, found me in my office around 2 p.m. Rick's been my friend since graduate school, back when we were both broke and ambitious and had more ideas than sense. He helped me build this company from nothing, and he's one of the few people I actually trust. He took one look at my face and said, "So you've seen the video, multiple times now." I replied, staring at the architectural renderings on my desk. Apparently, I'm viral, living the dream. Rick sat down across from me, loosened his tie, and said something I'll never forget. "You know what the difference is between you and everyone laughing at that video? You could buy and sell most of them 10 times over. You've built things that'll outlast all of us. And you did it without posting about your morning routine or pretending to be something you're not." "Yeah, well," I said, "apparently that makes me the family punchline." "For now," Rick said, standing up. "But Marcus, guys like us, we don't stay punchlines for long. We write the ending." That night at dinner, baked chicken that Laura ordered from the grocery store's prepared food section and presented like she'd slaved over it. She mentioned that her Instagram following had doubled. 2,000 new followers, all apparently enthralled by her comedy stylings at my expense. Eli was talking about how kids at school kept bringing it up. how even his teachers had seen it, how everyone thought it was so funny. I sat there cutting my pre-made chicken and thought about what Rick had said, about writing the ending, about not staying the punchline forever. That's great, honey, I said, my voice perfectly even. Really great engagement numbers. Laura Bean missing the edge in my tone completely. Right? People really respond to authenticity. Authenticity. That's what she called publicly mocking her husband. Meanwhile, I was being inauthentic by actually working, instead of performing my life for strangers. Murphy came over and put his head on my lap, and I fed him a piece of chicken under the table. At least someone in this house still appreciated me, even if it was just because I was the one who remembered to fill his food bowl. Yeah, I thought, watching Laura scroll through her comments, basking in her 15 minutes of fame. Let's see how authentic things get when the boring guy decides to stop playing along. Monday morning hit differently. You know that feeling when you walk into work and something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it? That weird energy where everyone's looking at you but pretending they're not? Yeah, that was my entire morning at Hale and Stanton, except I knew exactly why everyone was acting weird. And it had everything to do with my wife's newfound internet fame. I made it approximately 12 feet from the elevator before it started. Sarah from accounting, sweet woman, 3 kids, always brings banana bread to office parties, practically sprinted across the lobby to intercept me. Marcus, oh my God, I saw the video. Your wife is absolutely hilarious. She said this like she was delivering good news, like she genuinely thought I'd be thrilled that my public humiliation had made it to her Facebook feed. Thanks, Sarah, I said, adjusting my laptop bag and trying to calculate the fastest route to my office that involved minimal human interaction. She's a real comedian. You're such a good sport about it, Sarah continued, completely missing my tone. My husband would have died if I did that to him. You're so secure. Secure, right, that's definitely what I was feeling. Not annoyed, not disrespected, not like I wanted to fake my own death and start a new life in Montana. Secure. I gave her my best corporate smile. The one I use when clients are being idiots, but they're paying idiots. And made my escape before she could tell me more about how amazing it was that my family treated me like garbage for entertainment. My office is on the top floor, corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. I designed this building myself back in 2018, and yeah, I gave myself the best view because that's what you do when you're the boss. The door has my name on it in brushed steel letters, Marcus Hale, CEO. Usually, seeing that makes me feel accomplished. This morning, it just reminded me that I'd somehow become famous for all the wrong reasons. Jenny was waiting at my desk with coffee, black, no sugar, the way I've been drinking it since architecture school when I was too broke to afford fancy lattes, and an expression that told me she had news I wasn't going to like. So, she started, drawing out the word like she was about to tell me someone died. You're trending. I stopped mid-sip. I'm what? Trending, on TikTok. Someone took your wife's Instagram video and reposted it, and now it's got like 2 million views. She turned her laptop around to show me, and sure enough, there I was on her screen. The thumbnail was a freeze frame of me standing in the back of the auditorium, and the caption read, "When you're the family ATM but get treated like the family joke." 2 million views. 2 million people had watched my wife mock me, had watched my son tell me not to embarrass him, had witnessed what was supposed to be a private family moment. Well, semi-private. I mean, it was a public school event. But still, there's a difference between 200 parents in an auditorium and 2 million strangers on the internet. Great, I muttered, setting down my coffee before I threw it at something expensive. That's exactly how I wanted to start my week, as a cautionary tale for the algorithm. Jenny, to her credit, looked genuinely sympathetic. For what it's worth, most of the comments are on your side, and people are saying you look like you pay all the bills and still get roasted for it. There's even a hashtag, Tom Justice for Boring Dad. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A hashtag. I had a hashtag. This was my legacy now. Not the 23 buildings I designed, not the architectural awards collecting dust in my home office, not the company I'd built from scratch. No, I was now immortalized as hashtag Justice for Boring Dad, the patron saint of unappreciated husbands everywhere. Fantastic, I said, slumping into my chair. Should I start a TikTok account? Really lean into it? Maybe I can film myself paying bills and call it Boring Dad Does Taxes. I bet that'll go viral. Actually, Jenny said, pulling up her phone, Someone already made that. It's a parody account. They're pretending to be you. Of course they were. Because why wouldn't someone decide to impersonate me for internet clout? I pulled up the account on my own phone. The Real Boring Dad, complete with a profile picture of some stock photo guy in khakis and a polo. The videos were exactly what you'd expect. POV, you're paying for everyone's fun, but you're not invited to the joke, and Boring Dad reacts to being called boring, with some actor looking sad, while acoustic guitar music played in the background. It had 300,000 followers. This random person pretending to be me had more followers than my company's official account. The universe was really having a laugh at my expense this week. Brad from civil engineering knocked on my door around 10 a.m. "Hey man, saw the video. You okay?" He asked it like someone checking on a friend after a breakup, all concerned and gentle. "I'm fine, Brad. It's just the internet being the internet." "Yeah, but like..." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "That's your family, you know? That's different than strangers roasting you online. That's the people who are supposed to have your back." And there it was, the thing I'd been trying not to think about since Thursday night. Brad, who I'd never had a deep conversation with beyond discussing load-bearing calculations and the Steelers' playoff chances, had just put his finger directly on the wound. It wasn't the internet strangers that bothered me. I didn't know them. They didn't know me. Who cares what at CoolMom47 thinks about my life? It was Laura. It was Eli. It was the fact that the two people I worked hardest for, the two people I showed up for every single day, had decided that mocking me was quality entertainment. "I appreciate you checking in," I told Brad, because what else do you say? "I'm good, really." He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Hell, I didn't believe me. Lunchtime brought more joy. I went to pick up sandwiches from the deli across the street, the one I'd been going to for 6 years, where Tony behind the counter knows my order by heart, and even Tony had something to say about it. "Hey, you're that guy," he said, pointing at me with a butter knife covered in mayo. "From the video my daughter showed me. That's rough, man. Your wife really went in on you." "Yeah, Tony, she really did. Can I get my usual?" Sure, you know," he continued, apparently unaware that I just wanted my turkey club and to move on with my life. My wife did something similar at my brother's wedding, made jokes about me in her speech. I didn't talk to her for a week. A week. Tony's wife made jokes at a wedding, a one-time event, and he gave her the silent treatment for 7 days. My wife had turned our home into a daily comedy club where I was the only material, and I was supposed to just smile and take it because I was secure. Back at the office, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Old college friends who I hadn't heard from in years suddenly felt compelled to reach out. My cousin Deborah from Michigan sent a laughing emoji and, "That's hilarious." My own mother called to ask if Laura and I were doing okay because someone from her church had shown her the video. "We're fine, Mom. It's just a joke that got out of hand." "Well, it didn't seem very nice, Marcus. You work so hard for them." Coming from my mother, who'd been married to my father for 42 years before he passed, who understood what it meant to be a partnership, those words hit different. She got it. She saw what I saw. That respect and humor weren't mutually exclusive, that you could be funny without being cruel. My business partner Rick found me around 3 p.m., staring out my window at the city skyline. "Still processing your newfound fame?" You could say that. "Did you know there's a parody account of me? 300,000 people following some guy pretending to be Boring Dad." Rick whistled low. "That's actually impressive. Can we monetize that somehow?" Despite everything, I laughed. That's why Rick and I worked. He could find the angle in anything, could see opportunity where I saw disaster. Pretty sure impersonation isn't a viable business model. Neither is letting your family use you as a punching bag, Rick said, his tone shifting from joking to serious. "Look, I didn't want to say anything last week, but this whole thing, it's not okay, Marcus. I don't care how many followers Laura gets or how funny people think it is. You don't humiliate your spouse for clout. That's not how relationships work. Tell that to the 2 million people who disagree." 2 million people are idiots, Rick said flatly. "The internet thinks eating Tide Pods is funny. Their opinion is worthless." He had a point. The same platform that made my humiliation viral also made people famous for doing dances and pretending to be ghosts. Maybe I was taking this too seriously. Maybe I should just ignore it, let it blow over, wait for the internet to move on to the next thing. But then my phone buzzed again. Another text. This one from Laura. Hey, Good Morning America reached out. They want to interview us about the video. How crazy is that? Good Morning America, national television. My wife wanted to take our private dysfunction and broadcast it to millions more people, all for her moment in the spotlight. I looked at Rick. They want to put us on Good Morning America. You're joking. I wish I was. Rick sat down, processing. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? Keep playing the good sport? Keep smiling while my family cashed in on my humiliation? Keep being boring dad, the punchline? The guy who pays for everything and gets nothing but mockery in return? I thought about the talent show auditorium, about the renovations my company funded, about the check I'd written with my name on it. I'm going to make a phone call, I said. Rick's expression shifted. He knew that tone. Marcus, just one phone call, Rick, to Principal Jensen, about budget restructuring. A slow smile spread across Rick's face. You're going to pull the sponsorship? I'm going to reallocate our charitable giving to organizations that value the contributors. I picked up my phone, scrolling to Mrs. Jensen's number. It's just good business. Here's the thing about being quietly successful. People forget you're in the room. They get so used to things just working. Lights turning on, buildings standing up, programs getting funded, that they forget someone's actually making all that happen. It's like thinking your Wi-Fi just exists naturally in the air, some kind of technological magic, instead of understanding that someone's paying the bill every month and dealing with Comcast's customer service, which is its own special circle of hell. Northfield Middle School had gotten very comfortable with things just working. New science labs just appeared one day. State-of-the-art auditorium with professional lighting and sound. Must have been budget surplus. Scholarship fund for underprivileged kids. Probably some government grant. The renovated gymnasium, the updated library, the technology center with computers less than 5 years old. All of it just magically materialized because that is what happens at well-funded schools, right? Wrong. So incredibly, frustratingly wrong. Let me paint you a picture of how this actually went down, because context matters. And I'm petty enough to want everyone to understand exactly what they're about to lose. 3 years ago, September 2022 to be precise, I got a call from Principal Jensen. Well, technically, her assistant called my assistant, because that's how the professional world works. But eventually, she and I ended up on the phone together. Northfield was in trouble. The district had cut funding, enrollment was down, and they were looking at serious infrastructure problems. The auditorium ceiling had water damage. The science labs were using equipment from the Reagan administration, and the scholarship program was about to be eliminated entirely. Mrs. Jensen didn't just call me randomly. She'd done her homework. She knew that I'd graduated from Northfield back in '99, that I'd started Hale and Stanton in this city, that I had a son who'd eventually attend the school. She made her pitch professionally, outlined the needs, showed me the budget shortfalls, explained the impact on students. It was a good pitch. I respected the hustle. But here's what sealed the deal. She mentioned that they were trying to keep the arts and music programs alive, that they believed in well-rounded education, that they wanted kids to have opportunities beyond just standardized test prep. That hit home for me. When I was at Northfield, the architecture elective program changed my life. Mr. Patterson, different Mr. Patterson than the guy I play golf with now, saw something in my terrible sketches of buildings and encouraged me to pursue it. Without that program, without that teacher, I'd probably be doing something soul-crushing like corporate law or middle management. So I wrote a check, not a small one, not a here's $5,000 for new basketballs check. I'm talking 6 figures. The kind of money that makes your accountant call you twice to confirm you didn't accidentally add an extra zero. And that was just year 1. We set up a 3-year sponsorship agreement. Hale and Stanton Group would be the anchor donor, the primary sponsor, the name on the plaque in the lobby that nobody ever reads. Year 2, we increased the contribution. Business was good, profits were up, and honestly, it felt good to give back. We funded the technology center renovation, bought new computers for every classroom, set up a scholarship fund that sent 4 kids to college. 4 kids who otherwise wouldn't have gone. I met them at the awards ceremony, bright, talented, hardworking students who just needed someone to believe in them and put some money where that belief was. Year 3, this year, we were supposed to finalize an extension. 5 more years, increased funding, plans for a new STEM wing. My architects had already drawn up preliminary designs. We were going to build something special, something that would serve students for decades. I'd personally spent hours on the project, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because I remembered being a kid in that school, dreaming about buildings, and I wanted other kids to have the space to dream too. The paperwork was sitting on my desk right now, actually, unsigned, waiting for the board meeting next month where we'd make it official. 5 years, 7 figures total, my company's name on a building that would outlast all of us. But here's what nobody knew. What Principal Jensen had somehow failed to mention during her 3 years of thank you speeches and donor appreciation events. The guy writing those checks, the boring architect in khakis who showed up to school functions and smiled politely, was the same guy currently going viral as the family joke. The sponsor behind the curtain, the invisible donor, the forgettable dad in the back row, yeah, that was me. The irony was so thick you could build a load-bearing wall with it. I pulled up the sponsorship agreement on my computer, scanning through 3 years of contributions. The auditorium renovation, the stage Laura had stood on while mocking me, that was $180,000 of my money. The sound system that amplified her jokes, another $40,000. The comfortable seating that 200 parents sat in while laughing at my expense, 12 grand per section, 6 sections total. Even the damn lighting that made sure everyone could see my face clearly while I smiled through the humiliation, that was a $30,000 upgrade. I'd literally funded my own public roasting. I'd written the checks that made the venue possible. Without Hale and Stanton's sponsorship, that talent show would have been held in a half-renovated gym with a crackling microphone and folding chairs that pinch your ass. Laura would have been yelling her jokes over bad acoustics while parents squinted through poor lighting. The more I thought about it, the funnier it got. Not haha funny, more like cosmic joke funny. Universe having a laugh at my expense funny. I'd invested nearly $500,000 over 3 years to support education, to give back to my community, to make life better for kids, including my own son. And my payment for that investment? Public humiliation, internet fame for all the wrong reasons, and a hashtag that would probably follow me to my grave. My phone buzzed. A text from Laura. Mrs. Jensen wants to do a social media feature on funny families. Should we do it? Could be great for the school. Great for the school. The school that existed in its current form because I'd kept it afloat. I stared at that text for a solid minute, watching the ellipses appear and disappear as Laura typed something else. Probably more excited rambling about her 15 minutes of fame. I called Rick instead. Rick, you remember the Northfield sponsorship agreement? The middle school. Yeah, we're supposed to finalize the extension next month. Why? What's our obligation if we want to withdraw? Silence on the other end. Then, we'd have to give 30 days notice, fulfill any outstanding commitments for this fiscal year, but after that, we're clear. Marcus, what are you thinking? I'm thinking about budget restructuring, reallocating our charitable giving to organizations that demonstrate appropriate gratitude and respect. Rick laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone watching a train wreck in slow motion and being powerless to stop it. You're really going to do this. I'm really going to do this. The principal's going to lose her mind. The PTA, the school board, Marcus, this is going to cause chaos. Good, I said, surprised by how calm I felt. Maybe chaos builds character. Isn't that what they're always telling kids? That adversity makes you stronger? You know Laura's going to flip out. Laura's got 2 million views and a Good Morning America interview request. I'm sure she'll be fine. Another pause. You want me to draft the withdrawal letter? Please. Professional, courteous, citing budget reallocation. Nothing personal, just business. It's extremely personal, and we both know it. Well, yeah, I admitted. But they don't need to know that. Let them think it's about quarterly earnings and investment strategy. Let them scramble. Rick sighed. I'll have it ready by tomorrow morning. You're sure about this? Was I sure? I looked at my wall of achievements. Architecture awards, business accolades, photos of buildings I'd designed that would stand for 100 years. Then I looked at my phone, at Laura's text about doing another social media feature. at the TikTok notifications that wouldn't stop coming, at my own face frozen in that moment of public humiliation. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. We hung up, and I sat there in my corner office, looking out at the city I'd helped build. Literally helped build. 3 of the buildings in my sightline were Hale and Stanton projects. I'd left my mark on this place through work, through creating things that mattered, through doing boring things like signing contracts and managing budgets and writing checks. Nobody made viral videos about the boring guy who funded scholarships. Nobody hashtagged the architect who kept schools running. The quiet contributors, the steady workers, the responsible adults. We were just supposed to keep showing up, keep paying, keep smiling while everyone else took credit or made jokes. Well, not anymore. I opened my email and started typing to Mrs. Jensen. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just, "Dear Principal Jensen, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to touch base regarding our sponsorship agreement and discuss some upcoming changes to our charitable allocation strategy. Would you have time for a call this week? Best regards, Marcus Hale." Professional, courteous, terrifying if you knew how to read between the lines. I hit send and leaned back in my chair. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Laura. Something about the video reaching 3 million views now. I turned the phone face down and smiled at my city skyline. They wanted a show? They wanted entertainment? They were about to get the most expensive lesson in consequences that Northfield Middle School ever received. And the best part? I didn't have to be mean about it. Didn't have to yell or threaten or make a scene. All I had to do was stop being boring. Stop being predictable. Stop being the guy who quietly paid for everything while everyone else took him for granted. All I had to do was close my checkbook. Wednesday morning started like any other day in the Hale household. Coffee brewing at 6 a.m., Murphy scratching at the back door to pee, the sound of Eli's alarm going off 3 times before he actually dragged himself out of bed. Normal. Routine. Boring, some might say. Except today, normal was about to get real interesting. Real fast. I was in the kitchen making breakfast. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, the kind of balanced meal that Laura would photograph for her Instagram and caption something like, "Hubby cooking breakfast, Howard, blessed life," without mentioning that I cooked breakfast every single Wednesday because that was our deal. She handled Mondays and Fridays, I handled Wednesdays, and the rest of the week we fended for ourselves like functional adults. But on social media, I was just hubby, the prop in her lifestyle content, the background character in her main character energy. Laura came downstairs around 7, already dressed in her athleisure. You know, the uniform. Those expensive leggings that cost more than my dress pants and a designer hoodie that somehow costs $150, despite being made in the same factory as the $20 version. She was scrolling through her phone, probably checking her notifications, counting her new followers, basking in the warm glow of internet validation. "Morning," I said, plating her eggs the way she liked them. Slightly runny, turkey bacon crispy, whole wheat toast on the side. Morning," she replied without looking up. Her fingers were moving fast, typing something, probably responding to comments or messages from her new fan base. The fan base that existed because she'd made me a joke. Eli stumbled in next, looking like every 12-year-old boy at 7 a.m., hair sticking up in 4 different directions, eyes half closed, moving like a zombie toward the orange juice. "Dad, can you drive me today? Mom's supposed to, but she's got that thing." "What thing?" I asked, though I knew Laura would fill me in whether I wanted her to or not. "I'm meeting with Mrs. Jensen this morning," Laura said, finally looking up from her phone. "She wants to talk about me being more involved with the PTA, maybe even running for vice president. Apparently, the video really showed my leadership energy." Leadership energy. That's what we were calling it now. Not publicly humiliating your husband, but leadership energy. I flipped Eli's eggs with perhaps a bit more force than necessary. "That's great, honey. Really great." She missed the sarcasm completely. Right? I mean, I've always thought about getting more involved, making a difference. And with my social media presence now, I could really help the school's visibility. The school's visibility, the school that I'd been making invisible donations to for 3 years, the school that was about to learn a very expensive lesson about whose visibility actually mattered. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded, served breakfast, and checked my watch. Rick's withdrawal letter should be arriving in Mrs. Jensen's inbox right about now. My phone buzzed. A text from Rick. Letter sent. God help us all. I smiled into my coffee. Eli, go get your backpack. I'll drive you today. The drive to school was quiet. Eli was on his phone, probably watching YouTube videos or texting his friends, doing whatever 12-year-olds do on their phones that parents are better off not knowing about. I pulled up to the drop-off lane, and he grabbed his backpack, pausing before he got out. Dad, he said, his voice different, smaller. Are you mad at us about the video? I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had Laura's eyes, my jawline, that awkward preteen thing happening where he was all elbows and knees and hadn't quite grown into his features yet. He looked worried. Good. Maybe worry would teach him something that laughter hadn't. No, buddy, I said, keeping my voice level. I'm not mad. I'm just adjusting my priorities. You'll understand soon enough. He nodded like he understood, but he didn't. Not yet. He would, though. They all would. I watched him walk into school, backpack bouncing, and I wondered when exactly my kid had decided that mocking his father was entertainment. When had respect become optional? When had Laura and I failed to teach him that love and humor didn't require a victim? My phone rang. Mrs. Jensen, right on schedule. Mr. Hale? Her voice was tight, professional, but I could hear the panic underneath, and she was probably sitting in her office right now, staring at Rick's email, trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of administrative error. I received an email from your office this morning regarding the sponsorship agreement. Ah, yes, I said, putting on my best professional voice. The one I used with difficult clients, friendly but firm. Budget restructuring. I'm sure you understand. Economic conditions, strategic reallocation of resources, standard business practice. But, Mr. Hale, we're in the middle of the fiscal year. We've already budgeted based on your contribution. The STEM Wing project, the scholarships, we'll need to find alternative funding, I finished for her. I have complete confidence in your ability to secure other sponsors, Mrs. Jensen. You're very good at what you do. Silence. Long, painful silence. I could practically hear her brain working, trying to figure out what she'd done wrong, how she'd offended the golden goose. She had no idea. None of them did. They just thought I was boring old Marcus, quiet Marcus, dependable Marcus, who would always be there with his checkbook open. Mr. Hale, she said slowly, carefully, like she was negotiating with a hostage taker. If there's been any issue, any concern with how we've handled the partnership, no issues at all, I interrupted. This is purely a business decision. Hale and Stanton is refocusing our charitable giving toward organizations that align more closely with our corporate values. Nothing personal, I assure you. What about Eli? He's a student here. Surely. Eli will continue attending Northfield, of course. This doesn't affect his enrollment. It's simply a matter of where we choose to invest our charitable dollars going forward. More silence, then quieter. Does Laura know about this? And there it was. The question everyone would be asking. Does your wife know? Does your family know? Did you discuss this with the people who just publicly humiliated you? I'll discuss it with Laura when appropriate, I said. But to be clear, Mrs. Jensen, this is my decision as CEO of Hale and Stanton. Our charitable giving falls under my purview. I see. She sounded defeated, lost, like someone had just told her Santa wasn't real and also he was taking back all the presents. Mr. Hale, is there anything we can do to change your mind? Any way we can address your concerns? I thought about it, really thought about it. Was there anything they could do? Could Laura unmock me? Could the internet unlaugh? Could Eli take back telling me not to embarrass him while I stood there, having literally paid for the stage he set it on? I'm afraid not, I said. The decision is final. You'll receive formal documentation within 30 days. All outstanding obligations for this fiscal year will be honored, of course. We're not trying to leave you in a lurch. Thank you, she said, but it sounded automatic, robotic. I'll need to inform the board and the PTA. This will be significant news. I imagine it will be. Have a good day, Mrs. Jensen. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear or regret, but from adrenaline. From finally doing something instead of just taking it. From being something other than the punchline. The rest of the morning was uneventful. Meetings, emails, a conference call with a client in Boston about a mixed-use development. Normal work stuff. Boring stuff. The kind of stuff that kept 200 people employed and paid for Laura's designer athleisure and Eli's private school tuition. Around 11, my phone started buzzing. Multiple calls from Laura. I let them go to voicemail. She could wait. She'd made me wait through a week of jokes and mockery. She could wait a few hours for an explanation. By noon, she'd called 7 times and sent 15 texts. The texts devolved from confused, "Honey, Mrs. Jensen called me 3 times. What's going on?" to annoyed, "Marcus, answer your phone," to slightly panicked, "People are saying you pulled the sponsorship. That can't be right. Call me." I texted back a single word, "Budgeting." Her response was immediate. "What does that mean?" I didn't reply. Let her stew. Let her feel confused and powerless and like things were happening that she didn't understand or control. Let her experience about 5% of what I'd felt all week. Rick came into my office around 1. So Mrs. Jensen called me. Then the school board president called me. Then someone from the PTA called me. "Your phone must be exploding." I turned off notifications, I said. Needed to focus on work. Boring stuff. Rick grinned. "You're enjoying this way too much." Am I? Am I really enjoying this too much, Rick? Because I don't think I'm enjoying it enough. I think I could enjoy it more. "Your wife's going to murder you." My wife should have thought about that before turning me into a meme. I leaned back in my chair. "What did you tell them when they called?" "The truth. Budget restructuring, reallocation of charitable resources, no hard feelings, very professional." "And how'd they take it?" "About how you'd expect." The board president asked if there was flexibility in our timeline. Translation, "Please don't do this, we're screwed." "What did you say?" "I said our fiscal planning is quite firm." Rick sat down, his expression shifting from amused to serious. "Marcus, you know this is going to blow up, right? Not just at the school. Your family, your reputation, the whole thing. People are going to call you petty, vindictive, all the names." "Let them," I said. You know what nobody called me when I was writing 6-figure checks? Appreciated, valued, respected. So yeah, maybe I'm being petty, maybe I'm being vindictive. But at least I'm being something other than the guy everyone takes for granted. Rick nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Not the easy thing, but the right thing. Sometimes people need to learn that actions have consequences. That you can't just treat someone like garbage because it's funny." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Laura. "I'm coming to your office. We need to talk. Now." I showed Rick the text. He whistled low. "You want me to clear the floor? Maybe set up some protective barriers?" "Nah," I said, standing up and straightening my tie. "Let her come. Let's see how funny she thinks things are when the joke's on someone else for once." Thursday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train crashing through a fireworks factory. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., earlier than usual, but sleep had become this elusive thing ever since I dropped the sponsorship bomb. Not because I felt guilty, mind you. More like that Christmas Eve feeling when you're a kid, except instead of waiting for presents, I was waiting for the entire school administration to collectively lose their minds. Laura had come home Wednesday evening after her office ambush. Yeah, she actually showed up at Hale and Stanton like some kind of corporate warrior stomping through the lobby in her $150 athleisure, demanding to see me. Jenny had buzzed me with a warning. "Your wife is here, and she looks like she's about to commit a felony." I'd let her cool her heels in the waiting area for 20 minutes before finally letting her into my office, because petty was my new aesthetic and I was fully committed to the bit. The conversation had gone about as well as you'd expect. Lots of, "How could you?" and "Do you know how embarrassing this is?" and "Everyone's talking about it." To which I'd calmly responded, "Yes, I do know how embarrassing it is when everyone's talking about you. Interesting feeling, isn't it?" She'd stormed out after that, and we'd spent the rest of the evening in separate rooms, which honestly was the most peace I'd had at home in weeks. But Thursday was when things got really interesting. I was halfway through my coffee, reading the Wall Street Journal like a responsible adult who definitely wasn't about to wreck a school's entire budget, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let those go to voicemail because I'm not trying to discuss my car's extended warranty at 6 a.m., but something told me to answer this one. "Mr. Hale?" The voice was trembling, actually trembling, like someone trying to hold it together during a funeral. It was Principal Jensen, and she sounded like she'd been crying, or drinking, possibly both. "Mrs. Jensen," I said, keeping my tone professional and detached. This is early. Everything okay? I. She took a shaky breath. I just wanted to confirm. Is your firm really withdrawing the sponsorship? All of it? Yes, I said simply, taking another sip of coffee. Black, no sugar, no sympathy. As I explained in our previous conversation, we're reallocating resources. It's nothing personal, just business. I could hear her inhale sharply, like I'd just slapped her through the phone. Mr. Hale, I don't think you understand the situation this puts us in. We've already committed to projects based on your funding. The STEM wing construction starts next month. We've awarded scholarships. We've made promises to families. Promises based on money you didn't have yet, I interrupted. That seems like a planning issue, Mrs. Jensen. Perhaps the school board should have waited for the contract renewal before making commitments. Silence. Cold, painful silence. I could practically hear her brain short-circuiting, trying to figure out how the boring, quiet, dependable sponsor had suddenly grown a spine made of steel and ice. What? Is this... She paused, and I knew exactly what she was about to ask before she asked it. Is this about the talent show? About Laura's... About what happened? Bingo. Give the woman a prize. She'd finally connected the dots, probably after staying up all night trying to figure out what she'd done to piss off her biggest donor. I imagined her in her kitchen, drinking wine at 3 a.m., scrolling through every interaction we'd had, trying to pinpoint the exact moment she'd screwed up. Mrs. Jensen, I said, my voice still perfectly even. I have no idea what you're referring to. My wife is hilarious. Everyone says so. 2 million people on the internet agree. I'm just a boring guy making boring business decisions. Surely you can understand that. The sarcasm was thick enough to spread on toast, but I delivered it with a smile in my voice, the kind of passive-aggressive pleasantry that makes people want to scream but gives them nothing concrete to call you out on. Please, she said, and now she was definitely crying. I could hear it in her voice, that wet, desperate quality. Please, Mr. Hale, we'll do anything. We can make a public statement. Acknowledge your contributions. Put your name on the building, whatever you want. Whatever I want. That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? An apology, a do-over, my dignity back? You can't unring a bell. You can't make 2 million people forget they laughed at you. You can't erase your son telling you not to embarrass him, or your wife pointing at you like you're the punchline to a joke you didn't consent to being part of. I appreciate the offer, I said, but this decision isn't negotiable. Hale and Stanton has chosen to invest our charitable dollars elsewhere. I'm sure you'll find other sponsors who align better with the school's values. But your son goes here? Doesn't that matter to you? And there it was. The emotional manipulation, the guilt trip, the desperate attempt to make me the bad guy for having boundaries. Classic. My son will continue to receive an excellent education at Northfield, I replied. This has nothing to do with Eli's enrollment. It's simply a matter of where my company chooses to spend its money. Surely you wouldn't want us to make charitable contributions out of obligation rather than genuine support? I was being a dick. I knew I was being a dick. But it felt so good to finally be the dick instead of the doormat, to be the one making people uncomfortable instead of absorbing everyone else's comfort at my expense. I have a board meeting this afternoon, Mrs. Jensen said quietly. They're going to ask questions. What am I supposed to tell them? Tell them the truth. Tell them that Hale and Stanton has decided to reallocate our charitable giving. Tell them that sponsorships aren't guaranteed forever. Tell them that maybe, just maybe, they should have been more careful about taking their biggest donor for granted. We didn't, she started, but I cut her off. Mrs. Jensen, with all due respect, you absolutely did. You used photos of my family in your PR materials. You featured my wife's hilarious comedy routine in the school newsletter. You laughed along with everyone else when I became the joke. You didn't take me for granted. You took me for a fool. There's a difference. More silence. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, she's here. Who's here? Laura, your wife. She's in my office right now. She came in 20 minutes ago, crying, begging me to talk to you. She says this is all her fault. I set down my coffee. Laura was in the principal's office, crying. My wife, who'd spent the last week riding high on her viral fame, who'd been planning her Good Morning America appearance, who'd been soaking up every second of attention like a plant that had been dying of thirst. She was crying in an administrator's office like a misbehaving student. The irony was so beautiful it should have been framed and hung in a museum. That's between you and her, I said. My decision stands. Mr. Hale, please. She's devastated. She understands now that what she did was wrong. Can't you forgive her? Work this out as a family? Forgive her. Work it out. Be the bigger person. Take the high road. All the phrases people use when they want you to roll over and make their lives easier. All the language that prioritizes peace over justice, comfort over consequences. Mrs. Jensen, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to really hear it. My relationship with my wife is none of your business. Your relationship with my company's charitable giving is a professional arrangement, and that arrangement is ending. The two are completely separate. Don't confuse them. But, however, I continued, since we're having this conversation, let me ask you something. When Laura made me a joke in front of 200 parents, did you think that was appropriate? When my son told me not to embarrass him while standing on a stage my money paid for, did you consider that maybe that was disrespectful? When your school newsletter featured photos from that night with captions about hilarious family moments, did it occur to anyone that the person being humiliated might be the same person funding your programs? I heard her breath catch. I didn't think about it that way. No, you didn't. Nobody did. Because I'm boring Marcus, dependable Marcus, the guy who shows up and writes checks and doesn't make waves. The guy you can count on to take a joke. Except, here's the thing, Mrs. Jensen. I'm done being that guy. I'm done being convenient. I'm done being taken for granted. And I'm definitely done funding an environment where my own family thinks it's acceptable to mock me for entertainment. So this is personal, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Everything's personal, Mrs. Jensen. Every relationship, every interaction, every dollar spent or withheld, it's all personal. I just finally stopped pretending it wasn't. I could hear muffled voices in the background, probably Laura saying something to her. Then Mrs. Jensen came back on the line. She wants to talk to you. I'm sure she does. But I'm at work right now, doing my boring job, making boring decisions. Tell her I'll see her at home tonight. We can discuss it then. Like adults, in private. The way these things should have been handled in the first place. Please reconsider. Mrs. Jensen tried one more time. The students will learn a valuable lesson about consequences and respect. Consider it part of their education, free of charge even. I hung up before she could respond, before the guilt could creep in, before I could start second-guessing myself. My hands were shaking again. That adrenaline rush that comes from finally standing up, from finally saying all the things you've been holding back, from finally being something other than nice. Murphy wandered into the kitchen, looked at me with his big brown dog eyes, and put his head on my knee. Even the dog knew something was happening, could sense the shift in the household dynamic. I scratched behind his ears, and he groaned happily, completely unbothered by human drama. Dogs had it figured out. Be loyal to the people who feed you, ignore everyone else. Good boy, I murmured. At least someone in this family has their priorities straight. My phone buzzed. A text from Rick. Mrs. Jensen called me again. Sounded like she'd been crying. What did you say to her? I typed back the truth. Apparently it hurts. His response. You're my hero. Also possibly a monster, but mostly my hero. I smiled, finished my coffee, and headed upstairs to get ready for work. In the mirror, I looked the same. Same boring face, same boring haircut, same boring guy. But something was different. Something in the eyes, maybe. A hardness that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had always been there, and I'd just finally stopped hiding it behind smiles and nods and playing the good sport. Today was going to be interesting. Laura was at the school, probably being consoled by the same principal who'd laughed at the jokes. The PTA was probably in crisis mode, and somewhere in offices and group chats and morning coffee conversations, people were starting to realize that the quiet guy in the back row wasn't as quiet as they'd thought. Boring Dad was officially off the clock, and the show was just getting started. Laura's car was already in the driveway when I got home Thursday evening. Not just in the driveway, aggressively in the driveway, parked at that angle that says I'm upset, and parallel parking is for people who have their emotional shit together. Her BMW was blocking half of my spot, one wheel slightly up on the grass like she'd abandoned it in a hurry to get inside and prepare for battle. I sat in my Audi for a minute, gathering myself. Through the window, I could see lights on in the kitchen and living room. The house looked normal from the outside. Nice two-story colonial in a good neighborhood. Well-maintained lawn because I paid the landscaping company every month. Tasteful exterior lighting that came on automatically at dusk. The American dream in brick and vinyl siding. From the outside, you'd never know that inside, a marriage was having its reckoning. Murphy met me at the door, tail wagging like I'd been gone for years instead of hours. At least someone was happy to see me. I could hear movement in the kitchen, cabinet doors closing with just a bit too much force, and the sound of someone aggressively making dinner or possibly just channeling rage through meal preparation. "I'm home," I called out, setting my briefcase by the door and loosening my tie. Professional courtesy, even in a war zone. "Living room. Now." Laura's voice clipped. Furious. The tone she used when Eli tracked mud through the house or when the credit card bill was higher than expected. Except this time, I wasn't a kid who'd made a mess, and I sure as hell wasn't going to be scolded like one. I took my time, hung up my jacket, checked the mail, bills, credit card offers, a catalog for overpriced furniture that Laura would probably dog-ear and hint about. Normal life stuff continuing while everything else fell apart. Then I walked into the living room where my wife was standing with her arms crossed, still in her athleisure from this morning, except now her eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. A lot. Good. "You humiliated me," she said before I could even sit down. No hello, no how was your day, just straight into the accusation. "Do you have any idea what today was like?" Sitting in Mrs. Jensen's office while she told me our family's donation was being pulled, having the PTA president call me in tears because the science program might get cut, everyone asking me what happened, what you're so mad about, why you do something so childish. Childish. That was the word she went with. Not justified, not understandable, not even excessive. Childish. I sat down on the couch, my couch, in my house that my boring job paid for, and looked at her calmly. Childish. Interesting choice of words. Let's talk about childish, Laura. Is it childish to mock your husband in front of 200 people? Is it childish to turn your family into a viral video for internet clout? Or is it only childish when there are consequences for your actions? "It was a joke," she practically shouted. "A joke, Marcus. Why can't you take a joke?" "I've been taking jokes all week," I replied, my voice level, and I took them at dinner. I took them when you posted that video. I took them when 2 million strangers decided to weigh in on my life. I took them when Good Morning America wanted to interview us so you could get your 15 minutes of fame at my expense. So don't tell me I can't take a joke. I've taken plenty. I'm just not paying for them anymore. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "This is about money? You're really going to punish an entire school because your feelings got hurt? This isn't about money, and you know it. This is about respect. This is about you deciding that humiliating me was entertainment, that our marriage was content, that my dignity was a fair trade for your social media following." "Oh my God," she said, throwing her hands up. "You're being so dramatic. Everyone thought it was funny. You're the only one who..." "I'm the only one who what? Who didn't enjoy being the punchline? Who didn't find it hilarious to be mocked by his own family?" "Yeah, Laura, guilty as charged. I'm the only one who had a problem with being treated like garbage for laughs." She sat down hard on the opposite chair, deflating a little. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter but no less angry. "The school needs that money. The kids need that money. You're hurting innocent people because you're mad at me. The school needed that money when they were using my family as PR material. They needed it when they were laughing at my expense. Funny how nobody thought about consequences then." I leaned forward. "And let's be real clear about something. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm simply choosing where to spend my money. The school isn't entitled to my donations just because they were getting them before. Nobody's entitled to anything from me, especially not respect after they've shown me none." "But Eli will learn a valuable lesson," I cut her off. "He'll learn that actions have consequences, that you can't mock someone and expect them to keep supporting you. That respect isn't optional in relationships, it's fundamental. Seems like a lesson worth learning, don't you think?" As if summoned by his name, I heard the front door open. Eli was home, probably from his after-school robotics club that I paid for. His footsteps hesitated in the hallway. He could probably hear the tension, feel it radiating from the living room like heat from a furnace. "Mom? Dad?" His voice was uncertain, small. The way kids sound when they know their parents are fighting and they're not sure if they're part of the problem. "In here, buddy," I called out, gentler. None of this was his fault. Not really. He was 12. He was following his mother's lead, doing what kids do, testing boundaries, figuring out what's acceptable. The problem was that the adults in his life hadn't taught him where those boundaries were. Eli appeared in the doorway, backpack hanging off one shoulder, his face pale. "Everyone's talking about it at school. They're saying Dad made the school lose all its money. They're saying Mom made Dad so mad that he's punishing everyone." Laura's eyes flashed. "See? See what you're doing? Your own son is hearing one version of the story," I interrupted. "Eli, come sit down." He hesitated, looking between us like he was trying to decide which side of a battlefield was safer. Finally, he shuffled over and sat on the edge of the coffee table, his usual spot when we had serious talks. Murphy followed him, loyal dog that he was, and sat at his feet. "Here's what actually happened," I said, looking my son in the eye. "My company has been giving a lot of money to your school for 3 years. We paid for new labs, new equipment, scholarships, the auditorium renovation, pretty much everything nice your school has. We did this because we believe in education and because I went to Northfield when I was your age." Eli nodded slowly. "Okay. But recently, I realized that the school and some people in our family were taking that support for granted. They were treating me like a joke, like someone whose contributions didn't matter, like I was just there to write checks and be quiet. So I made a business decision to support other organizations instead. Organizations that appreciate their donors." "But Dad," Eli said, his voice cracking slightly, "I didn't mean to at the talent show. You were just being a kid," I said softly. "Following your mom's lead, getting laughs, being part of the show. I get it. But here's the thing, Eli. Words matter. Actions matter. When you tell your dad not to embarrass you while standing on a stage he paid for, that matters. When your mom makes jokes about your dad being less than other parents, that matters. And when enough things matter in the wrong direction, eventually there are consequences." Laura made a disgusted sound. "You're really going to make a 12-year-old feel guilty? That's your play here?" "I'm teaching him about cause and effect," I said, still looking at Eli. "Science, right. You like science. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you get burned. If you mock the person supporting you, they stop supporting you. Simple physics." "That's not physics," Laura muttered, but I ignored her. Eli's eyes were getting wet. "So it is my fault. The science fair might get canceled, and it's because the school made budgeting decisions based on money they didn't have yet," I corrected. "It's because they assumed I'd always be there with my checkbook, no matter how they treated me. That's not your fault, buddy. That's poor planning on their part. But you could fix it," Eli said, and now he was crying for real. 12-year-old tears that were equal parts frustration and confusion. "You could just give them the money back and everything would be normal again." "Normal," I repeated. "You mean normal like Mom making jokes about me every night at dinner? Normal like being the family punchline? That kind of normal?" "I just want things to be okay," Eli said quietly. And damn if that didn't hit me right in the chest. Because he was right. He was a kid. He just wanted his parents to get along, wanted his school to function, wanted life to be simple and easy the way it's supposed to be when you're 12. But life wasn't simple. And sometimes making things okay required making them uncomfortable first. "Things will be okay," I said. "But they're going to be different. Better. Hopefully. But different." Laura stood up abruptly. "I can't do this. I can't sit here and listen to you justify punishing innocent people because your ego got bruised." She looked at Eli. "Honey, go upstairs and do your homework. Your father and I need to finish this conversation alone." Eli looked at me, uncertain. I nodded. "Go ahead, buddy. We're good." He left, Murphy trailing behind him like a furry emotional support animal. Smart dog. Get out while you can. Once we heard his door close upstairs, Laura turned on me with full force. "You are being cruel, vindictive, petty, all because you can't handle a little teasing." "A little teasing," I said flatly. "That's what we're calling it?" "Yes, that's exactly what it was. You're so sensitive, Marcus. You always have been. God forbid anyone makes a joke. God forbid everything isn't exactly how you want it. I wanted respect, I said, standing up to face her. That's it. That's all I wanted. Not worship, not constant praise, just basic respect. And you couldn't even give me that. You chose social media likes over your husband's dignity. You chose being funny over being kind. So yeah, Laura, I'm being petty. I'm being vindictive. I'm being all the things you're accusing me of. And you know what? It feels a hell of a lot better than being the joke. She stood there, chest heaving, eyes blazing, and for a moment I thought she might actually hit me. Instead, she grabbed her phone from the table and headed for the stairs. Fine, you want to be petty? Be petty, but don't expect me to support it. Don't expect me to pretend this is okay. I haven't expected anything from you in weeks, I called after her. Why start now? She paused on the stairs, turned back. You know what the worst part is? I actually thought we were happy. I thought we were good. And all this time you were just keeping score, waiting for the right moment to punish me. No, I said quietly. All this time I was hoping you'd realize on your own that what you were doing was wrong. That you'd stop and think about how I felt. That maybe, just maybe, you'd choose me over the laughs. But you didn't. So here we are. She didn't respond. Just turned and went upstairs, her footsteps heavy and angry. I stood alone in the living room, in the house I paid for, surrounded by the life I'd built, and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no victory, no defeat. Just nothing. Maybe that was the saddest part of all. Friday evening, Northfield Middle School called an emergency parent meeting. Not a casual, hey, come by if you're free kind of thing. This was a full-blown, we need to address a critical funding situation, crisis summit. The email went out at 3 p.m. with a subject line that might as well have been written in all caps and fire emojis. Urgent. Special PTA meeting regarding school funding. All parents encouraged to attend. Laura got the email on her phone and immediately turned to me with this look. Half panic, half accusation, like I'd just announced I was joining a cult or running for president as a third-party candidate. You have to come, she said. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even really a request. It was a demand wrapped in desperation. Oh, I'm coming, I replied, closing my laptop. I'd been working from home that afternoon, partly because I had some design reviews to finish, partly because I was avoiding the office gossip about my personal life. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Marcus, please. Her voice cracked on my name. Please don't make this worse. If you're going to go, can you just sit there quietly? Can you not what? Not defend myself? Not explain my side? I stood up, grabbed my keys. Don't worry, Laura. I'll be perfectly professional. But I'm not going to sit there and let people act like I'm the villain for having boundaries. The drive to the school was silent. Laura stared out the window, her jaw tight, while I focused on the road and tried not to think about the fact that this was probably going to be the most uncomfortable hour of my life. And that's saying something, considering I'd sat through the talent show, which, until recently, had been holding the record. The parking lot was packed. I'm talking Black Friday at Target levels of packed. Parents who probably hadn't attended a PTA meeting since their kids were in kindergarten were suddenly very concerned about school funding. I found a spot in the back. Of course I did. Back row was apparently my designated zone in life. And we walked toward the building in silence. People stared. Oh, they tried to be subtle about it, but I'm an architect. I notice sight lines and angles, and when people are very obviously looking at something, they're pretending not to look at. Whispers followed us like a wake behind a boat. I caught fragments. That's him. Can you believe? His own son's school. So petty. Laura walked slightly ahead of me, like she was trying to distance herself, create plausible deniability. Sorry, officer, I don't know that man. He just followed me here. The auditorium, my auditorium, the one with the excellent acoustics I'd personally approved, the comfortable seats I'd selected, the lighting system that cost more than some people's cars, was standing room only. Every seat filled, people lining the walls, parents who probably couldn't pick their kid's teacher out of a lineup suddenly very invested in school governance. We walked in, and I swear to God, it was like that scene in every Western where the stranger walks into the saloon and the piano player stops playing. Not literally, there was no piano, but the ambient conversation dropped by at least 50%. Heads turned, people nudged each other. Someone actually pointed, just flat out pointed at me like I was a zoo exhibit. Laura found 2 seats near the middle. I followed, giving polite nods to people I recognized. Mr. Patterson from the golf course gave me a slight thumbs up. Mrs. Chen looked away quickly. Brad from work, whose kid was in Eli's grade, just shook his head like he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Principal Jensen was on stage, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Her usual put-together appearance was gone, replaced by stress wrinkles and the slightly manic energy of someone who's been surviving on coffee and desperation. Next to her sat the PTA president, Donna Richardson, who I knew from various school functions and who'd always been perfectly pleasant to me. Now she looked at me like I'd personally canceled Christmas. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Mrs. Jensen began, her voice amplified by the microphone system that, again, my money had purchased. The irony was so thick I could taste it. As you know from the email, we're facing an unexpected funding situation that requires immediate attention and community discussion. Unexpected, right? Unexpected like a hurricane is unexpected when you've been watching the weather forecast for a week. Due to recent changes in our sponsorship arrangements, she continued, carefully not looking at me, we're facing a significant budget shortfall. This affects several key programs and initiatives, including the planned STEM wing, technology upgrades, and scholarship funding. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back said, "How much are we talking?" Donna Richardson stood up, consulting a paper with numbers that I knew by heart because I'd written the checks. The total impact is approximately $350,000 for this year, with projected losses of over $500,000 for the extended 5-year plan. The murmurs turned into actual gasps. Parents who had no idea how much it actually costs to run a school suddenly understood that they'd been operating on someone else's dime, and that dime had been removed from the equation. "Now," Mrs. Jensen said, raising her hands for quiet, "I want to be very clear that we're not here to assign blame or point fingers. We're here to discuss solutions and next steps as a community. Not here to assign blame, sure. That's why half the people in the room kept glancing back at me like I was personally stealing lunch money from children." A hand shot up in the third row. Angela Morrison, whose daughter was in Eli's class and who'd posted about the hilarious Hale family on her Facebook. Is it true that Marcus Hale withdrew his company's entire sponsorship? Just pulled it without warning? And there it was. The thing everyone wanted to ask, but nobody wanted to be the first to say out loud. Mrs. Jensen looked uncomfortable. "We received notice of sponsorship withdrawal earlier this week, yes. Mr. Hale's company, Hale and Stanton, has been our primary corporate sponsor for 3 years, and they've decided to reallocate their charitable giving." "But why?" Angela pressed. "What happened? Did the school do something wrong?" More murmurs, more glances in my direction. Laura was gripping the armrest so hard her knuckles were white. I could feel her willing me to stay silent, to let this blow over, to be the boring, quiet guy who never made waves. But I was done being that guy. I stood up. The room went silent, completely, totally silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. "If I may," I said, my voice carrying easily because I knew these acoustics intimately. I designed them. "I'd like to address the question directly, since we're all thinking about it anyway." Mrs. Jensen looked like she wanted to either cry or have me escorted out. Possibly both. "Mr. Hale, this isn't really the appropriate forum for what? For transparency? For honest conversation? I thought this was a community discussion." I turned to face the crowd, making eye contact with people I'd known for years. People whose kids played with my kid, people who'd been in this very auditorium laughing at jokes about me. "My name's Marcus Hale, for those who don't know me. I'm an architect. I run Hale and Stanton Group, and yes, my company has withdrawn its sponsorship of Northfield Middle School." You could hear a pin drop. Laura had her eyes closed like she was praying for the floor to swallow her. The question everyone wants answered is, why? Why would someone pull funding from their own kid's school? Why would someone make a decision that hurts students and programs? I paused, letting the question hang in the air. The answer is actually quite simple. My firm values education, absolutely. But we also value respect. And we've chosen to invest our charitable dollars in organizations that demonstrate both gratitude and professionalism. Angela Morrison piped up again. "But that doesn't explain—" "Let me be more specific," I interrupted. My tone still perfectly professional, but with an edge now. 2 weeks ago, at the talent show in this very auditorium, my family's personal dysfunction became entertainment. My wife, standing on this stage, made jokes at my expense. My son told me not to embarrass him. 200 parents laughed. The school's social media featured photos from that evening, celebrating the hilarious moment. The video went viral, reached 2 million people, all laughing at the boring guy in the back row. The silence somehow got even quieter. People were looking at their laps now, suddenly fascinated by their phones, anywhere but at me. That boring guy, I continued, he's the one who wrote the checks that built this auditorium, who funded the science labs your kids use, who provided scholarships to students who couldn't afford supplies, who invested $350,000 in this community because he believed in education and giving back. Mrs. Jensen stood up. Mr. Hale, I appreciate your contributions, but I'm not finished. My voice was sharp enough that she actually sat back down. I understand that my decision affects programs and students. I understand that it creates hardship. But here's what I need everyone in this room to understand. Respect isn't optional. You can't mock someone, humiliate them publicly, turn them into viral entertainment, and then act shocked when they stop supporting you. That's not how relationships work. That's not how communities work. That's not how anything works. Someone in the back, I couldn't see who, started clapping, slowly. Then someone else joined. Then a few more. Not everyone, not even most people, but enough. Enough to make it clear that some parents got it, understood what I was saying, had maybe experienced their own version of being taken for granted. Laura's face was burning red. She looked like she wanted to disappear, to melt into the chair and cease existing. So, to answer your question, I said, looking directly at Angela Morrison, the school didn't do something wrong. The school just forgot to do something right. They forgot to value their contributors. They forgot that charitable giving requires trust and respect. And they forgot that the quiet guy in the back row isn't quiet because he's weak. He's quiet because he's busy actually doing the work. I sat down. The applause grew a bit louder, mixed with some uncomfortable clearing of throats and shifting in seats. Donna Richardson stood up, clearly trying to regain control of the meeting. Well, thank you, Mr. Hale, for that perspective. Now, let's discuss practical solutions. We'll need to form a fundraising committee, reach out to other potential sponsors, but I was done listening. I'd said my piece, made my point. The rest was their problem to solve. Laura leaned over and whispered, "Can we leave now, please?" "Not yet," I whispered back. "I want to hear the plan. See how they intend to replace that unexpected funding." She slumped in her seat, defeated while the PTA droned on about bake sales and corporate outreach and grant applications. Plans that would maybe, possibly, if everything went perfectly, raise about 10% of what they'd lost. Good luck with that. As the meeting wrapped up and people started filing out, several parents approached me. Some to shake my hand, tell me they supported my decision. Others to glare and mutter things about priorities and thinking of the children. Mr. Patterson clapped me on the shoulder and said, "About damn time someone stood up for themselves." Even the janitor, Carl, who'd been at the school for 20 years, gave me a subtle thumbs up as he started setting up for cleanup. Laura and I walked to the car in silence. When we got in, she finally spoke. "Are you happy now? You got your moment. I got my truth." I corrected. "There's a difference." She didn't respond, just stared out the window as we drove home, probably calculating how long it would take for her social media following to forget about her, for her 15 minutes of fame to expire completely. Meanwhile, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Turns out, dignity delivered with a microphone is surprisingly satisfying. By Friday afternoon, the school's social media had transformed from celebrating hilarious family moments to full-blown crisis management mode. I'm talking corporate apology tour, damage control, the whole 9 yards. Someone on the PTA, probably Donna Richardson, after I'd publicly called out the entire community, had decided that maybe, just maybe, they should acknowledge that mocking your primary donor wasn't the smartest marketing strategy. The official Northfield Middle School Instagram posted a statement that was so carefully worded, it probably went through 3 lawyers and a PR consultant. "We deeply regret the unfortunate incident involving the Hale family and sincerely apologize for any disrespect shown to our valued community members, and Northfield is committed to fostering an environment of respect and gratitude for all who support our mission." Valued community members. That's what I'd become. A carefully sanitized phrase that meant, please don't sue us and maybe reconsider the money situation. The comments section was exactly what you'd expect from the internet. Half the people saying I was justified, The other half calling me everything from petty to tyrannical. Someone even started a poll. Is Marcus Hale a hero or a villain? I was winning villain by a narrow margin, which honestly felt about right. Laura's phone hadn't stopped ringing. Journalists, friends she hadn't talked to in years. That Good Morning America producer who suddenly seemed way less interested now that the story had gone from funny viral mom to family drama causes school funding crisis. Her brand, if you could call it that, had evolved from relatable comedy to cautionary tale. My son Eli found me in my home office Saturday morning, looking smaller than usual. Dad, can I talk to you? Always, buddy. I closed my laptop, giving him my full attention. He sat on the edge of my desk chair, not quite looking at me. Some kids at school, they're saying mean things about you, about us. They're saying we're the reason the science fair might get canceled. My heart clenched. This was the part I'd been dreading. Eli facing consequences for adult decisions, for family dysfunction that wasn't his fault. What do you think? I asked carefully. He was quiet for a long moment. I think I didn't realize how much you did for the school, for everyone. And I'm sorry I said that thing at the talent show about not embarrassing me. Come here. I pulled him into a hug, this kid who was getting too big for hugs but still needed them anyway. You were just being a kid, following the crowd. I'm not mad at you, Eli. I never was. But you're mad at Mom. I'm disappointed in Mom. There's a difference. He pulled back, looking at me with those serious eyes that were too old for 12. Dad, are you and Mom going to get divorced? And there it was. The question I'd been avoiding thinking about. The inevitable endpoint of respect lost and boundaries drawn. I don't know, buddy, I said honestly. But whatever happens, you're going to be okay. We both love you. That part doesn't change. He nodded, not quite convinced, and left me sitting there, wondering if standing up for myself had cost me everything that mattered. 3 weeks crawled by like wounded animals. The school found new sponsors, smaller ones, local businesses trying to get their names on something, parents organizing fundraisers that raised enough money for maybe half a new computer lab. The STEM wing got postponed indefinitely, which the principal announced with all the enthusiasm of someone reading their own obituary. The scholarship fund got cut from 4 students to 1. Everything scaled back, dreams deferred, reality checking in with a vengeance. Laura and I existed in the same house like polite strangers at a hotel breakfast buffet, passing the orange juice, commenting on the weather, carefully avoiding any topic that mattered. She'd stopped posting on social media entirely, her follower count bleeding out as the algorithm moved on to fresher content. Turns out internet fame has the shelf life of milk left out in August. Then I got the call. Mrs. Jensen, her voice tentative, asked if I'd be willing to speak at Career Week. The students need to hear from successful professionals, she said. And despite everything, Mr. Hale, you're one of the most accomplished people in our community. I almost said no. Almost told her to find someone else, some other boring professional to lecture kids about following their dreams. But something made me say yes. Maybe it was because Eli had asked me to, said it would mean a lot to him. Maybe it was because I wasn't quite done making my point. Laura declined to attend. I think you've had enough spotlights for both of us, she said, and I couldn't tell if it was bitter or just tired. Standing in front of those kids, 50 7th graders who probably didn't want to be there, who'd rather be on their phones or literally anywhere else, I looked out at the auditorium one more time. My auditorium, the one I'd built and then walked away from. You can be the hero or the punchline, I told them, skipping the standard career day speech about following passions and working hard. The choice is daily, every single day. You decide who you're going to be. Are you going to be someone who treats people well, who respects the people supporting them? Or are you going to take things for granted until there's nothing left to take? Some kids looked confused, others looked bored, but a handful, actually seemed to be listening, seemed to understand that I wasn't just talking about careers or success. I was talking about character. The loudest person in the room isn't always the most important one, I continued. Sometimes the person doing the real work is the quiet one in the back. Remember that. Value that. Because one day, you might need that person and they might not be there anymore. When I finished, Eli was waiting in the back row. His eyes were shining, proud maybe, or just relieved that his dad hadn't embarrassed him again. He hugged me in front of his friends, which at 12 is basically a public declaration of love. Dad, you kind of were the hero, he said quietly. Kinda works for me, I replied, ruffling his hair. That night, Laura and I finally talked. Really talked. Like adults who'd known each other for 15 years and were trying to figure out if they still wanted to know each other for 15 more. I was chasing attention, she admitted, sitting across from me at the kitchen table with cold coffee between us. I forgot what actually mattered. I forgot you mattered. I know. Can you forgive me? I thought about it, really thought about it. About whether forgiveness meant going back to how things were, or forward to something different. I'm working on it, I said honestly, but things can't go back to normal, Laura. That normal wasn't working for me. I know. She reached across the table, and I let her take my hand. New normal? New normal, I agreed. It wasn't fixed. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest, which was more than we'd had in months. Later, when people asked about the talent show, and they did occasionally when the story resurfaced in some remember when conversation, I just grinned and said what I always said. Yeah, that night was truly sponsored by humility, and an expensive lesson in consequences. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't destruction, it's dignity delivered with a smirk and a closed checkbook. And if that makes me the villain in someone's story, well, at least I'm not boring anymore.